Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to my kitchen counter here at Roots and Refuge Farm. My name is Jess, and this video is a continuation on the conversation that I started last week about preparing in wisdom. Now, if you haven't seen that first video, I'll put a link to it down below. It was where I sat down and gave some different ideas of things you can do in the meantime to get prepared without falling into fear. Just different life principles, really, that I think you would benefit from applying no matter what happens in the earth. Right now, there's a big conversation happening, and I think that it's really been on the rise over the last few years, and especially since the beginning of 2020, when life as many of us know it really changed in a big way, and a lot of people began to question our food sourcing, and the homesteading genre and the idea of homesteading, this lifestyle, just really took off. I remember reading an article that said in 2020 homesteading and gardening was the fastest growing niche on YouTube as far as new channels go and growth within those channels. It actually was the first year it ever surpassed the beauty category. And while that might not seem like a massive deal to some people, the truth is it is incredible to see how many people are making a shift in awareness to the need to get closer to their food source. Of course, I love that. I am very passionate about teaching people how to grow food. And that kind of led me during this season to sit down and share the knowledge that I have. I'm not an expert. We've been doing this lifestyle for nearly 10 years now. I mean, in a very small capacity, and then about 8 years ago is when we really put our hands to building a homestead for the first time. And I've learned a lot during that time, and I love to be able to share that. So I decided that through the course of this winter, I'm gonna sit down and do these, I'm calling them classroom videos, where we just have really just a straightforward teaching format. So this is a long video. We're gonna do a lot of talking. I definitely encourage you to get something warm to drink or get your notebook out and get ready to take some notes. I've got my notebook here ready to share my notes. Or if you'd like to put your headphones in and just listen to this while you go about other business. Now, as I cover these topics in these classroom type videos, I am gonna cover some really basic stuff. And so I apologize if it's stuff that you already know. However, I do think repetition is good for us as learners. I know I like to hear things that I may already have learned repeated back to me because it helps me to recall them more readily. So I do think that that's good, and that's why I'm covering some really basic stuff. Plus, I wanna make sure that we don't leave anybody in the dust that might not have some of those foundational knowledge points. But I do want to invite those of you who already have this information and you're sitting through these classroom videos, if you have anything to add, any tips or knowledge that you could pour into this, please take a role as a teacher and put your information down in the comment section with your tips and things you've learned, your experiences. And some of the things that I'm going to say might be generalizations. And so if I say, well, this seed typically doesn't last as long, and you're like, well, actually, I grew corn seeds that were 10 years old. Please, it is okay for you to contradict me. You have different experience than me. And so your experience is valuable, and there might be something that I don't know yet that you can share. And so I really want the comment sections on these classroom videos to be a trove of knowledge that I can't provide. So I really would love for you to share your experiences so that the people who are coming here to learn are not limited just to what I know. The topic for today's video is about seeds and seed purchasing, seed storage for preparedness. I am an avid and passionate gardener, and if you've been with me for very long, your seed collection's probably grown a little bit from me talking about the many interesting, unique, and wonderful varieties that I love to grow in my garden. One of my mottos for how I grow and how I do things is grow something lovely. And my experience growing an interesting garden with varieties that I couldn't go buy at the store was a massive motivator for me and sticking it out whenever gardening got really hard. I really needed that as a motivator. And so I do have an extensive seed collection, and I love to purchase seeds. I mean, that's something like family and friends know, giving me money to buy seeds. I've asked for that for birthday and Christmas gifts for years and years and years. That's what I wanted to receive because I so love seeds and I love growing beautiful things. However, on the topic of like an emergency seed stash or a preparedness seed stash, there are some other things that you might want to take into consideration. And in my position of having a platform and getting to hear from so many people, there are certain questions that come up over time that I kind of put a little pin in, that I think I want to teach to that. I want to address that, because I'll notice that there are common misperceptions amongst people that might not have a whole lot of experience on the topic. And one of the questions I get asked so often is, well, what seeds do I need for an emergency situation? What about like a preparedness seed stash? You know, what kind of seeds should I buy? Where should I buy them from? How should I store them? And so that's really what I'm focusing on today. I still believe in growing beautiful things. I still believe in buying seeds for beautiful things. I'll still grow 50 varieties of tomatoes next year, but this is a little bit of a different topic. So I'm gonna just dive right in to several different points. The very first thing is the most common question that I get asked when it comes to seed saving for the sake of preparedness, and that is, do I need heirloom seeds? Where do I get the heirloom seeds? Where do I get the non-GMO seeds? People ask these questions often, and there's kind of like some confusion as far as this goes. So real quick crash course on this topic. A GMO seed is genetically modified. So when you're driving through rural farmland and you see acres and acres and acres of soy or corn or beets, sunflowers, very often these are genetically modified crops. And that happens in a lab. There's a lot of science behind that. And yes, I'm gonna oversimplify this for the people who wanna step in and like be like, well, actually, and argue very scientific things. I'm talking to very new gardeners here and people that don't have this information. And so we're gonna go real basic with the risk of maybe slightly oversimplifying, but that's okay. Like, it's okay sometimes to oversimplify to give people a general idea if that's all they need. And so whenever you see those genetically modified crops, those seeds are actually patented. They're owned by companies, and farmers, in order to grow those seeds, actually have to sign contracts. They have to go through this whole thing. And genetically modified seeds are, for instance, are seeds that they're changed at a genetic level to be able to withstand things like certain fertilizers or certain pesticides. That's a very deep topic that you could go very deeply into. What you really need to know as a gardener that's trying to save seeds for preparedness is that you're not gonna go to the store and buy GMO seeds. I don't care where you buy them from, you're not gonna buy GMO seeds. Not from a seed company, not from a grocery store. It doesn't matter if it says heirloom or organic on it. GMO seeds are not legal to be sold on a consumer level. Now, there is some risk if you are gardening near genetically modified crops, and like for instance corn, and you are growing corn, that there could be some cross-pollination of that genetically modified crop onto your crop. So there is some truth to that about cross-pollination. But for all intents and purposes, whenever you are buying seeds, you don't need to be looking for the one that says non-GMO. And a lot of them do. I'll tell you, like a lot of the seed companies that you buy from, they'll put non-GMO on their packaging. It's not because there's any chance that it could be GMO. There's no legal way for any seed company to sell genetically modified seeds to a consumer. The reason they put non-GMO on their packaging is because there's this idea circulating that people feel like they need to ask that. And in order to keep from being asked 8 million times if their seeds are genetically modified, they just go ahead and put it on the packaging. But that doesn't mean that the ones that aren't labeled non-GMO are actually GMO. So that's not something that you really need to worry about in the sake of that. If you want to fight against GMOs, you do it in the grocery store by reading labels and making sure your food is non-GMO. But your seeds at this point aren't. Now, with GMOs being out of the conversation, the thing that people typically will ask is, well, where do I get the heirloom seeds? Because I want to be able to save my seeds. Where do I get the sustainable seeds? I need the heirlooms to save the seeds. And there's this idea that goes around that you cannot save seeds from a hybrid plant. And that is not entirely true either. Hybrid, it's just a mix. Hybrid does not mean bad seed. In fact, there are benefits of growing some hybrids. They can have what's called hybrid vigor, which means they can be hardier and they can resist disease easier, and they can also just be really interesting. Every heirloom that we grow at one point was a hybrid. It was a mix that happened either on purpose or on accident, and somebody decided they liked the result and they decided to continue saving seeds from that plant until it became stable. When any plant is open pollinated, an open pollinated hybrid or an heirloom, which is open pollinated, you can save the seeds, and when you plant a seed from that parent plant, the seed is going to grow a plant that produces fruit that looks like the fruit of the parent plant. And when it comes to hybrids, the idea that you can't save seeds from hybrids, you can save seeds from hybrids. If you took a hybrid tomato and you saved the seed and you planted it, you would still get a tomato. It just wouldn't look exactly like the tomato you took the seed out of. And so for the sake of having your favorite tomato, let's say I really like Paul Robeson tomatoes. I like to have Paul Robeson tomato seeds and save seeds out of my Paul Robeson tomato because I really like that tomato. I like the flavor of it. I want to have it again the next year. Whereas if I were growing a hybrid tomato, I couldn't just save the seeds and get it again. I would have to buy those seeds again. So you see, it is more sustainable to grow an open pollinated variety if your goal is to get more of what you like. If your goal is survival, like if you're saying, I can't go buy food at the grocery store, and I'm just saying what if in this situation, you save seeds out of whatever you can. You don't have to say, I have to have heirlooms or I won't have food, because that's not true. It's more just a matter of preference and sustainability and spending money in order to get what you want, that heirlooms or open pollinated hybrids are a benefit, because open pollinated hybrids are the same as heirlooms as far as sustainability is concerned. But all seeds are worth saving if you need access to food. In fact, my Aunt Martha, who passed away a couple years ago, was a seed saving fanatic. Her and my mom both. And my mom still will just save seeds off of anything. My aunt would be in a restaurant and she would taste let's say a pepper on her plate and be like, oh, I like this pepper. And if there were any seeds on there, she would scoop them out and go home and grow them. Worst case scenario is you're gonna get a pepper that's not quite like the one you liked, but you'll still get a pepper. In fact, we get feedback all the time from people either here in the comment section or in our Facebook group, Friends of Roots and Refuge Farm, and they show where they have grown seeds and grown plants and harvested fruit from many store-bought varieties, most of which are hybrids. Not open pollinated hybrids, but just plain old commercially grown hybrids, and they still got food from them. So in buying your seeds, looking for open pollinated is best, but really any seeds are worth saving if it's something that you know that you like to grow. As far as the topic of them being organic or not, that's something that comes up a lot. I personally do not mind buying seeds that are not organic. I do garden organically. I use natural growing practices, but I am not trying to become certified to sell organic. The main time that really, really matters is if you are trying to become certified, because if you are wanting to be a certified organic grower for marketing purposes, you have to be able to prove that you used organic seed. For personal purposes, for me, it's good enough to grow the plants organically, and I don't mind if the seed is not certified organic, but that's a personal preference. I just want you to know, because a lot of people go, where do I get the organic heirloom non-GMO seeds, because I want them for survival purposes. Now the next point is one that I just want to shout from the rooftops. When you purchase a pack of seeds, it will have written on some place of the pack a date. For instance, this says packed for 2021, sell by 12/21. This is not an expiration date. I say this because I want it to stick with you. This isn't yogurt. We're not discussing dairy products. They are not perishable the way many things which have sell-by dates on them are. Now, there is a law, at least here in the United States, that requires any seed seller to sell seeds the year that they are harvested. I understand why this law is beneficial, because we can know when we go to purchase seeds from a store that they're fresh, because that is important for the highest germination rates. However, many years ago, the first seeds that I ever bought, the ones that I did not plant, I threw them in the trash because I thought they expired the first year. and there was a package in there of these colorful carrots, and they still haunt me. And I have wasted seeds. I have left them out in the rain. I have planted them wrongly. I've done things that ruin seeds, but none haunt me quite like that rainbow pack of carrots, because I didn't even give them a chance and I threw them in the trash. And I just didn't know better. And so I'm always telling people, hey, that's not an expiration date. Actually, Luke from MI Gardener did an experiment a couple years ago on his channel where he was actually given some seeds that had been in a shadow box, I think for either 82 or 87 years, a long time. And he actually took those, germinated them, and grew them, essentially reclaiming a variety that was pretty much extinct. It was no longer available, which is so cool. So I'm encouraging to those of us who like to save a lot of seeds, if you store them properly, they can last a long time. Now, there are a couple of things that the seeds do lose germination more quickly. I know corn loses its germination more quickly. And I know that onions and alliums can become harder to germinate, or you might lose some of the germination rate after the first couple years. And I feel like I've been told carrots are that way also, but I know that I've grown carrot seeds that were more than a few years old, and they have grown. So, you know, my personal experience is that they're still worth trying. I do try to cycle things out, and you know, when seeds are getting older, those are the ones that I will plant first, because it is best to try to use up those older ones. But seeds are not expiring after a year. In fact, I've still gotten fantastic germination on seeds that are 5+ years old. Because I do have a pretty large seed collection. The best bet to maintain as high germination rates as possible is to keep your seeds in a cool, dry place. Now, for me, I like whenever companies have the packaging where they're in these like little Mylar bags with a zipper, because that does help keep moisture out. But if you have seeds from a company that has a paper bag, if you're gonna keep extras after the first year, sometimes I'll get a little Ziploc or plastic bag and put the seeds in that. Or I just store all of my seeds in a plastic locking container. Any sort of like Rubbermaid or plastic storage tote, anything that you can put your seeds in and lock down so that they're not exposed to a lot of air, or that they can be protected if there's like something like accidental spills or potential water damage. That's definitely a good thing. Some people do keep their seeds in the freezer, which definitely extends the shelf life. From year to year, I don't know how necessary that is to keep them in the freezer, but if you're thinking, oh, I'd like to have some seeds that are like my backup emergency seeds, putting a small seed collection in the freezer, it's not a bad idea to have those on hand, because they can last a very, very long time if kept frozen. Do keep in mind when you are going to take those out of the freezer. Like if you're going to take your seed collection out of the freezer and take it right outside on a warm summer day, just don't do that. Take them out and set them on the counter, because if you take them from freezer to outside where it's warm, that temperature fluctuation is going to cause condensation, and then your whole seed collection is going to be damp, which is not a good thing. You definitely want them to be cool and dry. So that's why I like locking containers. That's why sometimes I'll put things in Ziploc bags, just trying to keep air and moisture that I can off those seeds as a benefit. If they ever do get wet, like if you ever have a seed package you leave out in the rain, it's not ruined at that point. Just take it out of the package, lay them out on a paper towel and let them dry, and then put them back into a dry package or a Ziploc bag. You definitely don't want to store your seeds in a place that's going to be really hot, like your greenhouse, your car, anything like that. That is going to break down and cause germination. But if any of those things happen, if they get wet, if they get hot, if they get left out in your living room for a year, still try to grow them. I mean, don't ever throw seeds in the trash unless they're obviously like moldy or rotten or something where it's clear that they're not going to grow. You cannot just assume that something is not going to grow because maybe your conditions that you kept it in weren't ideal. The only way you know it's not going to grow is if you put it in the soil and water it and it doesn't grow. To me, I don't ever put anything in the trash that I would like to try to grow, because if I put it in the trash, it will definitely give me nothing. But if I put it in the ground, the chances are a lot higher. Now, Now, I'm referencing here like purchased seeds a lot. I'm talking about seed packs and different things like that. But the very best way to grow a seed collection for a survival situation is saving seeds from plants that you grew. Now, if you're a brand new gardener and you're trying to get a seed collection together, obviously this isn't going to apply to you, but if you've gardened at all, even in just a year or two, you probably now have a real grasp at the wealth of seeds that are available to you from just growing a small garden. In fact, one little package of tomato seeds has 30 seeds in it, which can produce 30 plants. And if you get one successful plant that has 20 or 25 tomatoes on it, one single tomato has way more seeds than the package that that plant came from. You can sometimes get a couple of hundred seeds out of a tomato. So I really highly suggest that getting a seed collection together when you're new at gardening and you haven't gardened a lot, and having some survival seeds or backup seeds, emergency seeds, that's great. The best place to build your preparedness seed collection is from your own garden, because those are varieties that you now know you can grow. You know that they work well where you live. And while having a lot of different tomato varieties is great, and I love that, if I were going to be growing a garden when food was in short supply, I would not be growing a lot of different things that may or may not work. I would not be doing as much experimenting. If I were growing a garden that I knew I really needed to rely on, I would go to those top few that I know succeed very well and produce very well for me. So those are the seeds that I want to keep the most of. Not only just for myself, but because if there ever were a situation that we needed to be able to rely on the food in our yard and the things that we're growing, I want to be able to give plants to people, because I know how to start seeds, and so that's something I have that I can help other people with. And I want to be able to give plants to people that I know produce well in this area, that are easy to grow, that you don't have to have a ton of knowledge to get some harvest out of. So starting out with a seed collection is great, but don't neglect saving seeds from your own garden, because in just one season of growing, you can get a really great collection of seeds. And what I like to do is save them, write the year on them, and then the following year I'll grow out of those. A lot of times I'll save new seeds so I have the freshest seeds possible, and I'll give all of the ones from the year before away to people. So I still have, you know, several hundred seeds from the varieties that I know do well for me. I do have an older video out that I made years ago talking about seed saving. And it is very extensive, and it was during the season where my garden was producing a lot, and I was actually able to show how to save a lot of different things. So I'll put a link to that seed saving video down below in the show notes so you can find that and watch it. I do want to reiterate, because I don't know that I covered this in that video about seed saving, but again, I talked about at the beginning of this hybrids and heirlooms, and the fact that a hybrid is just a cross. I am not super worried about keeping cross-pollination from happening. The only time I will ever try to like isolate blossoms and try to make sure that I'm getting a pure bred seed from an heirloom plant is when it's like one of my most favorite varieties, and I want to make sure I have those seeds again. For me, especially when you're talking about preparedness for an emergency situation, it really doesn't matter if this stuff cross-pollinates. I save seeds very willy-nilly in my garden. I plant everything close together, and my thought process is the worst that can happen is I might end up with a hybrid, and that's not that big of a deal. So I save my seeds. I don't try to plant all one variety to make sure the seeds are pure, because I'm not selling them. It doesn't really matter if something crosses. And you'd be surprised, a lot of plants don't readily cross-pollinate. Not all the time. You have pretty good chances of getting a purebred plant by just saving the seeds without any sort of isolation. So if you're trying to like plan your garden out, if you Google it and see how far apart do varieties need to be to avoid cross-pollination, sometimes it's like 3 football fields, and you know, It's just not possible. Nobody has that much space in their home garden or even on their land to be able to plant their varieties that far apart from each other. And what it boils down to is I don't think it really matters that much. If something cross-pollinates, you'll still have food. So just save your seeds, even if you're not able to do it to a level of perfection that you might have liked. Just save them anyway, because then you have seeds and you have food, which is really the topic that we're talking about here. Now, if you haven't gardened a lot, and you haven't had the opportunity to save a lot of seeds, where do you buy them? And this question does come up a lot. I have favorite seed companies that I like to buy from. I will link a handful of the favorite seed companies that I like to shop from in the show notes for you guys to be able to check out. But really, to me, when it comes to preparedness, like I said, I don't think it really matters. Heirlooms are great, or open pollinated hybrids are a great place to start as far as seed saving. But really, for preparedness, to me, any seeds that you can get are good to have. Anything that you know how to grow, it doesn't matter if you purchase it at a grocery store or a hardware store or an heirloom seed company. I like to give my money to the heirloom seed companies. I have friends that run heirloom seed companies and relationship with people who are doing this. So that's who I like to support. I just think that when we vote with our dollars, it's good to buy from places who are giving you the options that you want to have. So I tend to shop at those places that also care about saving the beautiful things and growing lovely things and growing heirlooms and growing things with a story. But you don't have to buy from those places. And there's no reason to believe that the $3 or $4 pack of seeds from the heirloom seed company is better for your survival and preparedness than the 50-cent pack of seeds from the dollar store. Truly, whatever you can get is a good thing to have as far as having a small seed collection. All right, next question is how much to buy. How many seeds should you be storing for your preparedness seed collection? I think there are a lot of factors that go into that, but I don't think anybody really needs to have more seeds than they could grow in their lifetime. Like I would not devote, I've heard of people say, you know, should I get a deep freezer that I devote to seeds? That's a lot of seeds. In fact, that's, if you were to take a couple acre garden, a very large garden, and grow a deep freezers full of seeds, you could probably just keep sowing that garden year after year after year. And how many seeds are you going to produce in the meantime? I mean, like every year that you grow plants, you get more seeds. So I don't think that it's necessary to have like a monstrous seed collection. Do keep in mind that not all seeds are created equally when you're talking about quantity. For example, here's a package of eggplant seeds. There are 25 seeds in this package. Each one of these seeds produces a plant, which produces a lot of fruits on it. Whereas this package of beet seeds, it probably has about 40 beet seeds in it. And each one of these seeds is going to produce one beet. If you allow that beet plant to go to seed, you could collect more seeds and have more beets. But these harvests are not quite the same. So if you're talking about root vegetables, if you're talking about vegetables that you're going to harvest the leaves or the stems or different things like that, you might want to have more of those versus the seeds that are fruit producing. Either way, what I suggest doing is have your seed collection that you're planting out of, that you're buying the interesting things, but then separate from that, have a collection of seeds that are things you know grow well. You don't have to have a whole lot, like a little shoebox, a gallon Ziploc bag, and fill that up and just keep that in the freezer separate so that you always have those backup stores of the things that you know are successful for you. I don't feel like it needs to be just a ton, enough that you can make some mistakes, enough that you could grow for a few years off of it at the very least. My logic is that if you grow a few years off of those, at some point you're going to get some measure of fruit that you could save seeds from and continue that process. I touched on this briefly a little earlier, but the next thing to consider is what varieties should I store in my preparedness seed collection? And that is going to be so based on your location, your experience, the different conditions where you live. Save the seeds of what grows well. I actually think feed stores are really good sources of seeds to buy for preparedness, because if you go into a feed store, they are carrying the varieties that are most popular in your area. And they're gonna be kind of basic. It's not gonna be the cool pink beans or the streaky ones with purple streaks or whatever cool variety it is. It's gonna be like Blue Lake bush beans or Kentucky Wonder pole beans. It's gonna be the basic, tried and true heirloom that's most popular in your region. And for me, that's the kind of stuff that I want to have in a preparedness seed collection because they're tried and true for a reason. And while I love to grow variety in my garden normally, having a backup of seeds that I know are gonna produce a lot, they're gonna produce quickly, that's something that I really want to be able to hang on to. As I mentioned earlier, the things that have succeeded in your garden before, that is the very best thing to build your preparedness seed collection out of. And it might be completely random. It might be something that you've never seen in someone's preparedness seed collection before, but if it did well in your garden and you know that you have experience with that, you know how to take care of it, and you know what to do with the fruit, that's definitely what you want to have a stock of. One other thing to consider when we're talking about the varieties to grow is the time that it takes for these things to come to maturity. I made a video right at the onset of COVID because there were a lot of empty grocery store shelves, and so many people were diving into gardening for the first time, honestly, in a state of panic. And they were thinking, how do I grow food? How do I grow food? Well, if you hadn't already started growing food, if you didn't have things already growing, it's a bewildering feeling to think, how do I grow food? Because I might need it right now. And you start looking at all of these packages that say 70, 80, 90 days to maturity. I made a video that was called Food That Grows Fast, and it was a very similar format to this, just sitting down and talking about the fastest growing crops that you can grow in the home garden. And I'm gonna link that video down below. But whereas for a preparedness seed collection, I don't think you necessarily want to limit yourself to just fast growing crops. I do think it would be a benefit to have maybe more seeds of the fast growing crops, things that are going to turn around fast, things that are going to produce bulk faster. While I love those massive slicer tomatoes, and I don't mind waiting 100 days for those things to come to fruit, if there was a situation that arose where I was wanting to have a steady supply of food, I might lean towards something that would fruit in 55 days. That kind of thing is something that you would want to keep in mind when you're thinking, okay, I'm setting these seeds aside in the case of ever really needing them. So check out that video about fast growing food, and I cover all of that in depth there. Now, another really important thing to consider when you are saving seeds, and this was something that whenever I first kind of got into the preparedness world, I was talking to so many people that had these big seed collections, but they'd never gardened before. That to me is very counterproductive. Right now, some of you have gardening experience and you feel confident with the seeds that you have, that you could do what was needed to turn those seeds into food on the table. It is a wonderful feeling to have that experience. It really does bring a great sense of security in your food to have the knowledge of knowing how to grow. And for those of you who might feel stuck in the situation that you're in, maybe you're living in a duplex or an apartment, maybe you're living in a neighborhood where you don't have permission to build a garden in your yard with your landlord or whatever, you're in an HOA and you're not able to build the garden that you'd like. It doesn't mean that you should do nothing. Even if you are in a place where the only thing you can do is grow some microgreens on your kitchen counter or put some pots on your patio, that is still very valuable. And I want to encourage you that if you are watching this video and you're thinking, I really, really want to get some food security in place, but I'm not in a place that I can really learn how to garden, you really can learn quite a lot by very small efforts. I remember when I first started gardening, panicking whenever I sowed seeds and they first started to come up because I had no idea how to identify the seedlings. And I remember thinking, how are you supposed to tell which of these little plants are the ones you you sowed and which ones of these are weeds. Well, you could learn that lesson in microgreen trays or in pots on your patio or in a Greenstalk tower planter. You could learn a lot of lessons in that. You can learn how big plants get. You can learn how to tell if they need water. You can really get a grasp of how much food grows in certain spaces. So I do want to encourage you, if you're thinking along these lines of like, I really want to get closer to my food sourcing, don't wait for ideal circumstances to start. Right now, even if you're just really mostly harvesting the wisdom and the knowledge of how to garden, you're not harvesting a whole lot of food. That wisdom and knowledge is very, very worthy of pursuing. Another thing is that while it's great to have a seed collection, if you don't know at all what to do with it, you don't know how to start seeds, you don't know how to prepare soil, you don't know the needs of plants, the seed collection it's not going to be nearly as valuable to you. So getting some resources for new gardeners is a really good thing to add to this list. When you're making out that seed collection list of the things that you need to buy, adding in resources for new gardeners is very good. I do believe in having written information. I think that's really wise. And if you get a couple of new gardening books and read them and start experimenting a little bit as you build a preparedness seed collection, I think that's a really good place to be for somebody who's desiring to learn these things. I did a video, I'm referencing a lot of videos that I've done because searching for old videos is really hard. Sometimes it's hard to find them. So I'm going to tell you and link them all so you can find them. But I did do a video last year talking about the different survival seed kits. So if you go on like Amazon or online and you search survival heirloom seeds, there are a lot of kits that you can buy that have little bitty packages of like maybe like 5 to 10 of each kind of seed, and they're all like sealed in a Mylar bag for storage for being long lasting. And I kind of just shared some different things. Since then I have grown quite a few of those different seeds, and for the most part they all grew well. I didn't notice any issues as far as like real bad germination or anything with any of them. And while I like those kits, I don't think that there's anything wrong with them. And it might be a good place to start if you just want to have some seeds but you don't have a lot of time or ability to kind of shop through and try to choose certain varieties. Just having those seeds on hand might bring you some peace of mind. But there's no real benefit to those other than the fact that you would have a large variety of things. The thing is, all of the packages are really small. So I think it would be better to have fewer varieties of things that you know how to grow and use and just have more seeds of each variety. So I personally think piecing together your own collection is probably better because it can be more tailored to your actual needs. But those kits, they're okay, and it's not that anything's wrong. The prices of those have gone through the roof since the demand has gone up. A lot of the seed kits, which you can now buy for $50 or $60, used to be like 10 or 15 bucks. And stuff like that bothers me, but I'm not the boss of them. The last thing to consider when you are thinking about like stocking up in preparedness for gardening is that having the seeds is great, especially if you have the knowledge, but there are other things that come into play. Like, how are you going to build your soil? How are you going to fertilize? Do you have the tools that you need? What are you going to do for pest control? And so I like to purchase before the season starts. I like to purchase like a big bag of diatomaceous earth. I like to have some netting on hand that I can drape my plants with to keep like moths off from laying, lots of little caterpillars that are going to eat up my plants. I don't do just a ton of pesticides, even the organic stuff, but I do like to have some neem oil on hand, some BT to be able to spray for caterpillars. But one thing that I'm really exploring now and that I'm really wanting to put into play here on our new farm for the sake of preparedness is I want to really think, how am I going to build this soil in a sustainable way? In the past, I've always gone and bought big truckloads of compost, and that's how we've amended our garden every season. And while it works great to be able to grow that way, it's really not sustainable because we experienced in COVID that the demand on that compost facility was so high that the compost we bought from them during that time was honestly not great, because they didn't let it break down long enough, because they weren't able to produce it as fast as it was needed. And so one thing that I'm really going to be exploring is vermicomposting, which is having worm farms. My friend Natalie has a channel called Hey It's a Good Life, and she has done very well with vermicomposting. She really has it down and has been very successful with it, and she's created some resources as far as vermicomposting goes. So I'll link her channel so you guys can check it out. That's something that I'm planning on exploring, as well as composting and really managing my animals in such a way to build the soil in different places so that I can be less dependent on those outward sources of compost. So it's not something that I can really give you a here's the 1, 2, 3, but I will tell you that that's the plan that I have, because having the seeds is great, but I really want them to produce as much as possible. And if there were ever a situation that we really needed to be sustainable in what we were able to grow on our farm, we can't say, well, we won't be able to go to the grocery store, but we will be able to go to the feed store and buy fertilizer. So we want to bring those home and source those nearby as well. And to me, the great thing about vermicomposting, worm farming, is that you can do that anywhere. Like, you can have a little worm farm in an apartment and be able to build your soil and feed your plants and get higher yields. So that's something to keep in mind as you're building kind of a seed collection and a plan in that sense is, well, how am I going to grow these? So I know that this video may be a little maddening for people who want like a 1, 2, 3 checklist, because I can't really just tell you, oh, you need preparedness seeds, here, go buy this package here and you'll be good to go, because I think that there's probably not a simple solution like that to this problem. And I don't ever want to teach you guys what to think. I want to teach you how to learn about a situation, how to be curious, the questions to ask, the information to get, and point you in the direction of that information. And that was my hope in this video. Again, I want to reiterate what I said in my first video of this series, I guess you could call it. The goal for me in anything that I'm doing in my life is not focusing on survival. It's focusing on thriving now in the current situation, because I know that if I'm thriving now, if I'm learning to garden now, growing something lovely, growing beautiful things that I enjoy, that give me a passion to keep going back out to the garden, that I love to share with people, if any situation ever arises that there are issues with food supply and there is a breakdown in the supply chain and I do really need to rely on what's growing out in my garden, I can always shift gears into focusing on higher production, focusing on things that are going to be more guaranteed to yield a higher crop. But for me, if I were to immediately focus on that, if my goal was from the beginning, oh, well, I've got to grow this food. I've got to grow as much as possible, even if it doesn't interest me, even if I don't love the way that it tastes. I'm just going to grow for yield. I'm going to grow for the harvest. I would have long since given up by now, because that's the same food that they have at the grocery store. Whenever you're just growing the most basic stuff to get the highest yield, that's what they're doing on commercial farms also. They're growing the most basic stuff because the highest yield is their goal, because they want to make as much money as possible. And it was extremely disheartening for me when I was trying to grow those basic things to work my tail off in my garden and then go to the store and see the same exact crops that I'm working so hard over for 97 cents a pound. And I was like, man, I'm spending my life just saving a few dollars, and I wasn't feeling enriched. Though I know homegrown food is better, though I know it's better for the earth to do it that way and better for our bodies, I wanted to add the measure of enjoyment. And that's what got me into the whole growing something lovely. And so while I talk to you about like this preparedness, I really want to reiterate, this is a different thing for me. I have a seed collection that is full of beautiful things, interesting things that don't yield very much, but I just love to grow them. And that's primarily what I want in my garden, because my focus is thriving. And the thing is that in learning how to grow those beautiful things that have enriched my life, I've become a very proficient gardener. So that if ever I need to lean on that skill for survival, I have great confidence that it will work. And this again is that theory, let's thrive and not just survive, because then we know we'll have the skills necessary and we'll have a rich life no matter what happens. We cannot yield to fear, or else all we'll ever eat is boring tomatoes and yellow squash and plain old things that we could get for 97 cents a pound. And what a shame that would be. So I hope you feel encouraged. Don't get afraid. It's okay to be prepared. It's wise to be prepared. It's wise to learn how to do these things and to thrive right now, so we know that we can survive no matter what. Thank you guys for hanging out with me today. I bless you. Until next time.